So I'm going to give you a few minutes to solve this problem, and then I'm going to solve it. Okay, so for question 20, it says in a given equation, k is constant, and it says the equation has no solution. What is the value of k? Well, for a simple way to do this is if the equation has no solution, it means that this equal sign cannot be true. So the easiest way to do it would be k equals 1/2. Now, why is that? Well, 1/2 x plus 5 equals 1/2 x plus 7. No matter what x is, 1/2 x has to equal 1/2 x. So 5 cannot equal 7, which means that for this equation to have no solution, if the front coefficient of both x's are the same, there is no solution. So the correct answer here would be 1/2. Now, there are actually two answers that they accept for this problem, and the other answer they accept is 5. I'm not actually going to go into why 5 is also accepted, but if you rearrange this problem, 5 would also work. But this is the easiest way to do it, so this is the way I would recommend. Okay. We are moving on to the math test calculator section now. So you can use any calculator or any approved calculator. You can check their website, which ones they have approved. And we're going to start with question 1. You can use your calculator on these. Okay, so for this first question, it's just asking us to identify what the table means. And so it says the sample water was taken from each of the 10 different locations, and the pH of each sample was measured. The measurements are summarized. How many samples have a pH of 7.4 or greater? Well, so it tells us the frequency of each pH. So that means between 6.8 to 7, they found one sample that was in that range. Between 7.1 to 7.3 pH, they found two samples that were in that range. And so how many have 7.4 or greater? Well, that would be 7.4 to 7.6 and 7.7 to 7.9, which would be the frequency of 4 plus 3, which would equal 7, which means the correct answer here would be D. Okay, question 2. Okay, for question 2, we're given that a city has a population of 441,000 people, and we're told it has an area of 36 square miles. And so to find the population density, it says, what is the population density in people per square mile? And so per means divide. So for the number of people divided by the number of square miles. So 400, so 441,000 divided by 36, which you can use your calculator. So once you plug in into your calculator, we get this equals 12250, which is answer choice B. Okay, question number 3. Okay, so for this one, before we start the question, I just want to define four terms. Mean is the average. Median is the middle number. So say if you have like five numbers, it would be when you rank them from lowest to highest, it would be the one in the middle. Mean would be if you add all of them up and then divide by the total number of numbers. Mode is the number that occurs most often. So for example, if you have a list with like, I don't know, 5, 7, 8, then mode would be 5 because it's the number that appears most often. And range is the highest number minus the smallest number. And so for this one, it asks about the median diameter of plates. And so in a box plot, which looks like this. This is the highest number, this is the lowest number. This is Q3, this is Q1, and this is the median number or the middle number. And so we have to look at these for the Roman Empire and ancient Greece, and the Roman Empire has a lower this value than ancient Greece. So the correct answer would be A. Because as you can see, the Roman Empire, it's like, I don't know, 13, and Greece, it's like 19. Okay, question 4. Okay, for question 4, we have we're given that the ratio of glucose to kilocalories of energy released is 12 to 45. So 12 glucose equals 45 kcal. And so how many grams of glucose must be combusted to provide 85.5 kcal? I should write the 0.5 or whatever. The answers are pretty far off from each other anyway. So the way we would do this is we would just need to find the common ratio. So we would do 12 glucose divided by 45, and we'd put that in our calculator, and then we'd multiply it by the KCAL value, which would be times 85. So 12 over 45 times 85, which we plug into our calculator, gives us 22.8. And that would be our answer, C. Okay, question 5. Okay, so for this one, we're given a function f, which is x squared minus 7, and we're asked to find the value of f of 3. And so we know that x is equal to 3, because f of 3, that just means that x is equal to 3. And so we just plug in 3 squared minus 7, which we can either do in our heads or put into the calculator or do manually. 3 squared is 9 minus 7 equals 2. And that is our answer, C. Okay, question 6. Okay, so for this one, we're given that there's an unfair coin that's supposed to land heads 0.6 of the time, which basically means 60% of the time it should land on heads, and it should land on tails 40% of the time. So 0.4. And we're told that they flipped it 9 times. If it landed tail side up 5 times and head sides, what is the probability that the coin will land heads on the 10th toss? And so the main thing this is testing is, well, the correct answer, first, let me just tell you the correct answer. The correct answer for this would be 0.6. And the reason why is no matter how many times you flip it, you still have a 0.6% or a 60% chance of it landing on heads and a 40% chance of it landing on tails. If you flip it 100 times and you get tails every single time, on your 101th flip, there's still a 60% chance that it lands on heads and a 40% chance that it lands on tails. So the correct answer would be 0.6 or C. Okay, question 7. Okay, so for this one, we're given two data sets, and data set A has an outlier very far to the right, as indicated by this bar here. And for data set B, they removed said outlier. And then asked which of the following is true about the means of the data set A and B. And so mean is the average. And so if A has an extra point that is really large, then the mean will increase. Since B doesn't have it, it should have a lower um, mean than A, which means the mean of dataset A is greater than the mean of dataset B, which is answer choice B. Okay, question 8. All right, for question 8, we're told, according to the model, what distance in miles had she driven 3 hours after she started driving? And we're told in the question that the distance she drove as a function of time is 60t. And so we just multiply 60 times 3 to get the distance, which is 180. So the correct answer would be D for question number 8. All right, I'll give you a minute for question 9. Or for question 5, it asks which interval represents the values of t during which she drove in North Dakota. And so according to the top, she drove in North Dakota for these 360 miles. And so before then, she was in Minnesota here. And after that, she was still in Minnesota. So to figure this out, we would have to find where she started driving in North Dakota and where she ended driving in North Dakota. And so where she started driving in North Dakota would be where she started plus 120. So 0 plus 120 has to equal 60t, which means t is equal to 2. And then for the second one, it would be where she started plus the 120 miles plus the time she spent in North Dakota, which would be 0 plus 360 plus 120, which when you put in the calculator is 480 equals 60t divided by 60, and you get t equals 8. And so it'd be between 2 less than equals to t, which is less than equals to 8, which would be answer choice B. Okay, question 10. All right, so for question 10, we have a graph with um which shows us stuff, and it asks between which 2 days was the growth rate um per day of the algae the greatest. And so the main question is, where is the growth rate greatest? And so for growth rate, it's just the same thing as slope. So where is slope the largest and positive? Well, where the slope is the largest and positive is between 5 and 6. So the answer is B. It's basically just asking for slope, which you can also tell by the distance of the points. Like between 4 and 5, it goes up by 2. Between 5 and 6, it goes up by 3. Between 6 and 7, it goes up by 1. So the largest increase was between 5 and 6. So you can also figure out slope from that. But the correct answer is B. Okay, question 11. Okay, so for this question, we're told that a restaurant gives teachers 20% discount if they pay $14 after discount. What was the price of the meal before? And so we know that the original, so if it was the original times 1, it would mean that she would pay the original price. If it's original times 0.8, that means that she got a 20% discount because 1 minus 0.2 is 0.8. So original times 0.8 equals 14 because she pays $14. So to find the original, we would do 14 divided by 0.8, which would get us 17.5. Remember, we can use our calculators, so use them. 14 divided by 0.8 is 17.5, which is answer is B. Question 12. Okay, so for this question, we're told that the sample has 80 and bottles are only sold if they contain at least 19.8, so greater than or equals to 9.8, or but no more than 20.2, so less than or equals to 20.2. And if the proportion of bottles that have been sold is the same for a sample and for however many bottles they produce, which is 16,000, how many cannot be sold? So cannot be sold would be the opposite of these, which would mean less than or equals to 19.8, which would be 1 plus, and then it would be greater than or equals to 20.2, which would be 1. Or, sorry, it would not be equals to. It's greater than 19.8 or less than 19.8 or greater than 20.2, which would be the one at 19.6 and the one at 20.3. Those two. So it would be 2 and 2 out of the total sample size, which was 80, which means 1 out of 40 bottles cannot be sold. And then we just take this 1 out of 40 and multiply it by the total number of bottles that they make, which is 16,000. So 16000 times 1 over 40. And once we plug that into our calculator, we get 400, which is answer choice C. Okay, question 13. Okay, so for this one, we're asked to find the y-intercept given a table of values. And so we know that a y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. And so to find that, we need to find the slope. And so to find the slope, we find the change in x and y. So the change in x would be 5, and the change in y would be 8 plus 7, which would be 15, which would be 3. So the slope is 3. And so we need to get to x equals 0. So we have negative 2 comma 8. Then it would be negative 1 because we added 1 to x. So we'd have to subtract 3 from y. So that would become 5. And then 0, comma 5 minus 3 is 2. So it'd be 0, 2, which would be answer choice C. So the change in x was 5, the change in y was negative 15, because we went from positive 8 to negative 7. So negative 3. And then when we need to find x equals 0, so we just subtract 3 each time. I'll get a C. Okay, question 14. Okay, so for this one, we're told that charges $12 per meal, and the number of meals it sells is 400. Every time they increase the price by 0.5, the number of meals we will buy goes down by 10. How can they maximize profits, basically, is what it's asking. And so the best way to do this, I mean, you could try solving this, but the best way to do it is to use the answers. And so we have A is 16, B is 20, C is 24, and D is 28. Now, I would not recommend this method if you're not given a calculator, but since we are given a calculator, this method is much easier. And so if the price is 16, then how many times did we increase the price by 0.5? Well, we did it 12 minus 16 would be 4. So 8. So we did this 8 times, which means that we lost 80 meals. Okay, for this one, for 20, it would be 16, and we lost 160 meals. For 24, it would be 24 minus 12. It's 2. So that would be 24, which means we lost 240 meals. And then we don't need to calculate 28 because I know it's not that high. And so we now just multiply the number of meals by the price. And so 400 minus 80 gives us 320 times the price, which would be 16. This would give us a total output of 5,120. So that's A. For answer choice B, we would do 400 minus 160 times 20. Which would give us $4,800. And for the last one, we would do 400 minus 240 times the price, which is $24. So that would give us 3,840, which would mean to get the greatest amount of sales, it would be answer choice A, which would be changing the price to $16. So when you have a calculator, it's easiest to just plug in. Okay, question 15. Okay, so in this one, we're given a line and we're told what is the equational line of best fit. Or for this one, it would just be equation y equals mx plus b. I just swapped the mx and b variables because that's the way they have it in answers. They just swapped it. And so what is the equational line of best fit? Well, we know that b is the y-intercept and m is the slope. And so since this line is going upwards and it's positive, we know that there's a positive slope. So we know it's a positive m value. So that means the only answers that have a positive m value are A and B. And so now we just need to look at the y-intercept, and we can see that the y-intercept is between 2 and 4. And so from A and B, the only one with a B value between 2 and 4 is answer choice A, because it has a B value of 3.7. So the correct answer is A. Okay, question 16. Okay, so for this one, we're given a linear function, f of 2 is equal to 10, and we're given that it has a slope of 3, so y equals 3x plus the y-intercept, and to define the y-intercept, or b, we would just plug in, so y is equal to 10, x is equal to 2, 3 times 2 is 6, plus b equals 10, 10 minus 6 equals 4, so b is equal to 4. And so that means that when we plug this into this equation, we get y equals 3x plus 4, which is the correct answer. And so the correct answer is D, y equals 3x plus 4. Okay, question 17. So for this one, we're given equation 7x plus 21 equals -2. And we're asked to find what is x plus 3. Well, first we have to find x, so we subtract 21 from both sides, which gets us 7x equals -23. And then we would plug that into a calculator. We would do -23 over 7 is equal to x. And then we would just add 3 because we need because this is equal to x, and so now we just need to add 3. So plus 3 plus 3, because x plus 3 equals this plus 3, which when we plug into our calculator, -23 over 7 plus 3 equals -2 over 7, which is answer choice D. Okay, question 18. Okay, so for this one, we're given two equations, and we're asked to find the value of 3x plus y. And so there's two ways to solve this. And last class, I showed you one way, which is get the variables by itself. So for this one, it would just be x equals 10 minus 2y. You just plug in. So you just do 2 times 10 minus 2y minus y equals 5, whatever, whatever. But this time I'm going to show you the other way. And so for this, we're asked to find the value of 3x plus y. How do we transform this into 3x plus y? Simple. We can add these two. X plus 2x is equal to 3x. 2y minus y is equal to positive 1y. 10 plus 5 equals 15. So 3x plus y is equal to 15. So the correct answer choice is actually D. And this is a really good way to skip a lot of the work necessarily. Typically, you wouldn't use it for this kind of a problem, but because they provided such an easy value, it was pretty easy. Generally, where you would use this strategy is where if you have like 2x plus y and like 2x plus like 4y equals something, then you typically just use subtraction and you'd get rid of the x because 2x minus 2x equals 0, and then you just have the y equals some constant. You can easily solve for y. In these type of problems, you wouldn't usually use it, but because they provided such easy values, it's actually pretty easy to use. Um, but otherwise, we could also just solve it the normal way. This was just the interesting way to do it. So 20 minus 4y minus y equals 5. 20 minus 5y equals 5. Then add 20 to both sides. So 25 equals negative 5y. Wait. Subtract 20 from both sides. So negative 15 equals negative 5y. Y is equal to 3. 3 times 2 is, so x plus 6 equals 10. X is 4. So x is 4, y is 3. So 3 times 4 plus 3. So 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. So both ways we've got 15 as our answer. Okay, question 19. Okay, so for this one, we're told that an ad agency says that it'll increase its website traffic by 3.5% compared to the previous week. And so what difference does that make? So if you increase by 3.5% every week, then it would be linear. If you increase by 3.5% based on the last week, so like if you just increase by 3.5% every week, if you started with like 100, it'd be like 100 plus 3.5 and then plus another 3.5 plus another 3.5. But since this says compared to each previous week, it would be 100 plus 3.5. And that new number plus 3.5%, and then that new number plus 3.5%. And so what type of function models this? Well, it would look something like this. You start with some number, it increases by 3.5%, and then it increases by 3.5% compared to that number, and then so on and so forth, which would be increasing exponential, or A. Okay, question 20. Okay, so for this one, we're given a line and we're told that there's 11 points on it. For how many of the data points is the y value predicted by the line of best fit greater than the actual y value? So we have a line of best fit and we have some points. And it says for how many is the y value predicted greater than the actual? That means for how many is the line of best fit above the actual points? And so we just look at the line of best fit and count the number of them that are below the line, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer would be A, 5. Okay, question 21. Okay, so for this one, given a function, f of x equals 100 minus 18x, and we're told that the function models the number of miles she has remaining. So f of x equals miles remaining, and it says it's x hours after she starts the race. So x is the number of hours or time. And so what is the integration of f of 2 equals 64? Well, x got replaced by 2, so we know that it's after 2 hours. And so so the time is 2 hours, and then the number of miles remaining is 64. And so 2 hours after she starts the race, she has 64 miles remaining. Our answer choice D. Okay, question 22. Okay, so for this one, we're given two triangles, and whereas which of the following statements is enough to prove that ABC is congruent to DEF? And so congruent basically means how do we prove that they're the same exact triangle? And so we know that angle B and E are the same, and angle F and C are the same. So the thing is that getting the angle of the last side doesn't matter because we know that the angle or the angles inside of a triangle have to add up to 180. So 54 plus 29 plus the last angle has to equal 180, and the same thing for the other one. So we know that all the angles are the same. So we don't need to know that angle. And so how do we prove that these are the same triangle? Well, they have to have the same side lengths. And so for part A, the length of EF is 10. Well, that doesn't tell us anything about the other triangle. The other triangle could have a different side length. So it can't be answer choice A. For answer choice B, knowing the angle doesn't matter because we can anyway figure that out from the information we already have. For answer choice C, the length of BC is equal to EF. Well, if the lengths of those two are the same and they have the same angle measures, then that means that it would have to be the same triangle. So that means the correct answer is C. And then for answer choice D, the measure of the angle is equal to the other measure of the angle. Well, we already know that. So the correct answer is C. Okay, question 23. Okay, so for this one, we're given an equation, the absolute value of x plus 7 equals -4. How many solutions does this equation have? And so when you take the absolute value of something, can you ever get a negative answer? Like if you take the absolute value of 100, or if you take the absolute value of -100, you will always get a positive answer. And so you can never get a negative answer for this. So how many solutions does it have? 0, or answer choice A. Because no matter what you do, when you take the absolute value of any number, you'll never get a negative answer. So A. Question 24. Okay, so for this one, we're given an equation, 3x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. And so you could plug this into your calculator to find the values, but I'm just going to do it by hand. And so 3x plus or minus something, and then x. So 3x times x is 3x squared. We have -2 here. So it would be 2 times 1 equals 2. So one of these values is 2, one of these two values is 1. So this would be 2, this would be 1, this would be a plus. 3x, -2x. So that's 3x squared plus x minus 2. Yep, so that's the same one. So it would be 3x minus 2 times x plus 1. When you factor this, you get 3x minus 2 and x plus 1. You could still plug this into your calculator. I'm just doing it the long way because I don't know. And so you have to set these equal to 0. So x plus 1 equals 0. 3x minus 2 equals 0. And so x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 2/3. And then a plus b, 2/3 minus 1 would be 1/3, which would be answer choice B. Obviously, you could just graph this in your calculator. You don't actually have to solve any of this out, but I just did it. But the correct answer is B. Okay, question 25.
After question number 25, we'll end this session, Portia. Okay, it's almost 6:30.
Okay, so for this one, we have a circle. We know that the area of it is pi r squared, and so use your calculator on this one. And so we have area is 36 pi minus 18 equals pi r squared. And so we do 36 times pi, which is 113, minus 18, which is 95, equals pi r squared. Divide by pi, and then take the square root, which gets us r equals 5.5. So now we know the radius is 5.5. And so that this is 5.5. And then now we can just use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And since this is a square, we know that a is equal to b. So we can just do x squared plus x squared equals c squared, 2x squared equals c squared. And we know that c is 5.5, so 5.5 squared. So we get 2x squared equals 30.2, which we can then divide by 2, which gets us x squared equals 15.13. And then take the square root, which gets us 3.89. And then since we're finding the perimeter, we'd multiply by 4. It's times 4, which gets us 16.9, which is equal to 12 root 2. 16.9 is equal to 12 root 2. So the correct answer is C.
If they have any questions, they can ask. Otherwise, we'll end this session. Now, this is the last question. We'll continue with the next question next week.